Polina, welcome to the Happy Go Lifestyle podcast.
Yeah, I'm so happy. Thank you for having me on today.
I'm so happy you're here. So, you are a wellness coach and
Yes.
you focus on holistic health. And I love this idea about living a holistic lifestyle because it's not just about how many times a week you're working out or your diet and what you're eating, but it's really a three-pronged approach. It's about what you're putting in your body, how you're moving your body. And I think the last part is what a lot of people forget, and that's your mindset
Mhm.
and your emotional and mental well-being. So I would love for you to take us through your personal story of transformation and how you got to a place where you're living at your optimal level, because I know that wasn't always the case.
Mhm.
And you thought you were doing all the right things. You were working out and you thought you were eating healthy, but you still didn't feel good. So take us through that journey on how you got here. And now you're able to help tons of other women achieve the same success.
Yeah, 100%. I think the wellness industry can be very overwhelming. We get sold that one thing is the solution, like just do these boot camp classes or just get this membership or just eat this way. Where, as you said, I really believe it's holistic and that oftentimes, when I work with clients, I find that even if they're tracking everything in their life, going to bed at the right time, there's different things in their mindset of narratives or stories they tell themselves from childhood, from just life experience, or not feeling like you're living in your purpose. You can't like out eat that or out work out
Mm,
that. So I started having a passion for wellness kind of young. My parents were always into working out and eating healthy. And I think my first kind of exposure was just really focusing on workouts. A big mistake for me was thinking the higher intensity the workout, the better. Like I really love boot camp classes, HIIT classes. Unless I'm dripping in sweat and out of breath, that is what fit means. I think a lot of women think the same way. They think that I'm doing a lighter workout, I'm not going to get results. So I need to be pushing myself. My cortisol was much more spiked. My body was stressed. It was like waking up, instantly not eating,
well, your
just
cortisol is high in the morning anyway, right?
exactly. So not eating. And then after I would get an iced coffee. So I think on the outside, it looks so productive. Oh, you're waking up early. You're going to an intense workout. You're fasting. It looked great. But that was something that actually over time left me feeling depleted, like something else is off. At the time, I thought I was eating fine, but looking back, I was really under eating. It wasn't intentional, which I wasn't giving myself enough protein.
You were probably working out so hard that you were burning so many calories that you weren't making up for it.
Yeah, I just would have an avocado toast in the morning with, no protein after this hardcore workout, coffee, so, caffeine. And on the outside, it looked like it was eating healthy, but I was just not giving myself enough fiber, enough protein that I needed. And at that time, I also would, drink alcohol, which, nothing against that. But if you're already undernourishing yourself and doing those things, created more inflammation. And then in terms of the mindset piece, I was not really letting myself process feelings. Now I ask, why am I feeling upset? Like, is it a part of my cycle? Am I disappointed about something? So I think those three pillars that I now really focus on, so movement, mindset, and nutrition, I just started peeling back those layers over the years, transitioning into lower intensity, still high impact movement, starting to really nourish my body, and then shift into a more holistic approach. I think a lot of women also, if they're working a high stress job, then that just exacerbates things.
Yeah, because a lot of people, they'll be working out and they'll be eating good, but then they have so much stress and so much anxiety and they're not fulfilling that third pillar. So are you seeing a reoccurring theme in your practice with concerns that women are having?
I often see it as a two-way split. So I have a lot of people come to me who are eating very healthy, very type A, up early, doing all the things, but deeper things perhaps need some reflection, things around like worthiness. Because these things, unless we look at them, it just keeps going and the same pattern will repeat over and over. And a lot of it is just around, I guess you could say, their orientation to life through whether it's childhood experiences or just experiences later in life. That's a big piece of it. I think for a lot of people, purpose is a really big one. And then there's another sector of people who maybe do feel really great, do feel aligned in their purpose, but they don't really know how to eat for their hormonal well-being. They just think, should I just make salads and bowls? Like, how much protein should I be eating? What should I do for movement? And so I think it's really important to personalize everything.
Yeah, it's really just a balance. And I want to break it down to the different components. So let's just break it down to like the nutrition part. I
Mm.
think one of the challenges to maintaining a healthy lifestyle is sustaining it.
Yeah.
And the nutrition part really requires planning ahead, thinking ahead. I know for me, I try to, the start of the week, I buy all my vegetables, I wash them, I chop them up, I bake them, and I just have them throughout the week. I juice once a week, and that'll last me like 5 to 6 days. I also know that I'm always in a rush in the mornings and that I don't have time to make a healthy breakfast. So I make these gluten-free, high protein muffins, which if anyone wants the recipe, you can
Oh,
DM me.
I want it too, actually.
They're so good. So I put in like protein powder and hemp seeds and chia seeds and walnuts, and I just grab them and I'm on the go and it's great. I think a lot of it has to do with meal planning. What are
Mhm.
some tips that you have for women to think ahead and to line up themselves for success in terms of the nutrition part?
I love what you said. I think you're very much on the money there with the planning part. If someone's not used to meal prepping and taking the time to do that, there's an initial resistance. They're like, "No, I just want to go into my week." And I try to tell people like, "You're going to be so grateful on like a Tuesday when you're in a rush that you have that chia seed pudding that took you like 5 minutes to make, or the
Right.
sweet potatoes or the veggies." So selecting a day where you're going to do your planning, it's always great to have a few go-to meals or meal structures. And you can make that really simple, like cooking a few of your favorite proteins. For us on a Sunday, my husband will meal prep his beef in containers. I'll meal prep my chicken or ground turkey, whatever your protein of choice is, right? Having that prepped. I also always tell clients have easy access proteins. I'll have sliced turkey. Smoked salmon's a great example. Sardines,
I
easy
love
to
sardines. That's like my new favorite food. As gross as it sounds, I
I
love
know.
them.
I think people have a resistance to them. So there's a brand, Epic brand. They have salmon chews and they have beef too. Like if I'm really in a rush, I just like grab 2 sticks. So I would say trying to prep those proteins. And
And how much protein do we need? It's 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal weight, right?
yeah, that's like a really a good way to measure it. So like whatever, yeah, your body weight is essentially, but in grams of protein. And what I tell clients to do is just one time get a little kitchen weight. You can get them for relatively inexpensive on Amazon and just weigh so you can visually see, okay, how much chicken is this? One time just weighing 40 grams, for example, just so you can visually see, I think is really helpful. I also love eggs because I think it's relatively
Right.
quick. I love hard boiled eggs.
I eat eggs almost every day. I have this little egg maker and it hard boils or medium boils my eggs in like 7 minutes and it's just the easiest thing. It's the best kitchen tool that I have. I can imagine someone's listening to this and thinking, "Oh my god, this is so overwhelming. I have so much planning to do." But you just have to invest the time, maybe an hour on a Sunday, and then you're good to go for the rest of the week and you will be so grateful that you did. I want to touch on something you mentioned cortisol earlier.
Hmm.
And I have been more in tune with my cortisol lately. It's something that I never really thought about before, but I was doing these high intensity workouts and I was doing high cardio and I found myself just getting overexerted and I would come home and just crash. And I knew
Hmm.
that I was spiking my cortisol and I realized that that wasn't serving me. And so I've kind of scaled back my workouts. I do either a power walk or an incline walk. And so how does cortisol affect our bodies and what can we do to keep that at bay?
It's a really amazing question, and what people forget is that cortisol is a hormone, right? So we're so focused on like, what supplement can I take? What can I do to balance my hormones? When I think if well, someone were to lower the stress in their life, they would see the biggest result, which
Mhm.
it feels so intangible, so it feels not exciting. A good example of this, so my car got broken into, and so I had high stress for probably 3 days because I wanted to get it fixed. But that cycle, I've had very smooth periods, and I had the worst cramps. I was in so much pain. I was crying. I wasn't sleeping well those days. I just felt this adrenaline in my body. And so just how much it can affect your hormonal well-being is really, really unbelievable. If you start tracking what your month was like and then what your cycle is like, you'll very much be able to see the correlation. And so, of course, they'll interact with your other primary hormones, estrogen and progesterone. It signals to them a lack of safety. And so when there's a lack of safety, then that stress hormone is going to signal estrogen to drop a bit. Estrogen makes us feel really good. It lubricates our joints, mood, all of those things, regulates our body temperature. That's why often when women hit menopause or perimenopause, right, get night sweats, mood, irritability, other methods too. But that's just how much estrogen affects us. Like when estrogen, you'll notice it drop after you ovulate. So if you notice your mood is a little lower, if you track your ovulation, you feel a little bit off. So what cortisol does is it signals to estrogen basically it's not safe. And so estrogen will naturally begin to drop. So I totally agree that stress feels like this kind of mystical thing to reduce, but thinking about small ways you can reduce stress. So if I know I have like a stressful day, I ask myself, okay, can I wake up a little bit earlier to give myself more time? Or if I have admin tasks or things I really don't want to do, can I like light a candle or make the environment better? It sounds silly. It sounds like these tiny changes, but like these changes add up.
I love that idea of just letting pause because I sometimes overschedule myself and I'll schedule something like on the hour every hour. And I feel guilty for like wasting 30 minutes in the day. And then the days that I do actually leave that little buffer, I'm like not rushing. I'm not driving like a maniac. I'm just peaceful. And I'm like, why do I do this to myself? Like, it's so nice to just hit pause and give ourselves that time. You mentioned cycle tracking, and this is something that I've actually never done. And I'm really fascinated by it. This idea of tracking your cycle and eating according to your menstrual cycle. Can you touch on that a little?
Yeah, cycle syncing is getting really big, both with workouts, with food, and essentially trying to understand what your body needs at each part of the cycle. When you start with menstruation, right? If we start at the beginning of the cycle, that's when your body's really, because it's losing blood, is really where it needs a lot more nourishment, a lot more iron, a lot more protein, a lot of minerals. I would even like take real electrolytes. Essentially, that's like when you want to focus on replenishing the body. Your body's losing a lot, so it's really important to give yourself a lot. Also, cruciferous vegetables are really great throughout the entire cycle, but that's also another thing that's really great to focus on to help your body flush out any excess estrogen and any excess hormones. But think about nourishment, where I think sometimes we're in pain during that time, and naturally we have less energy, so we undernourish. The ovulation phase, I think it's only a 24-hour window, but I would just group it almost together with the follicular phase. High energy, great time for socialization, great time to put yourself out there. And then the luteal phase, we just need additional nourishment. I think healthy fats are great during the entire time, but healthy fats are going to be even more helpful during this time because it's going to really support our brain health. Because estrogen drops, our mental clarity can go down a little bit. Going back to ideally lower intensity workouts, so you can kind of still maybe do your normal workout regimen, but that week before your period, it's really good to just wind down the cortisol. I think a good way to think about it is, what is my body doing now? So what would be beneficial to help my body in this phase?
Yeah, I think the overall picture is that you're so in sync with your body. It's so
hmm
amazing just having this awareness. This concept never even occurred to me. I never ate according to my menstrual cycle, but it's really being in sync and listening to your body. I think that's fascinating.
Good
Yeah.
example of this. I don't know if you're the same way, but sometimes the house is a little bit messy. I'm fine. I'm not bothered. This is usually like the follicular phase. And then some days I wake up and I have such anger. I'm like,
Yeah.
why is everything out of place? And it's because in the luteal phase, your risk tolerance goes down, disgust goes up. And so you start to look for threats. You start to look for
I should
danger.
make t-shirts that say I'm in my luteal phase. Don't talk to me.
You can understand why the first half of my cycle, my body is looking for the positivity and everything. Everything is safe. Everyone's great. In the second part of your cycle, someone cuts me off while I'm driving. I'm like, that is it. I am
Yeah.
done for the day. It's so important to be connected with ourselves. If we have a connection with our body and we really are in tune with what's going on, we'll be able to advocate for ourselves better.
We know our bodies best. No one can tell you, oh, this is normal, that's not normal. You know what's normal for your body.
Yeah, so
So I want to talk about supplements. I know supplements can be so overwhelming because there's this sea of supplements out there. Do we really need supplements, or is food enough? And if we do, what are the top 3 to 5 supplements you think most women should be on?
I think if we were eating the most perfect diet at every meal and having like beef liver and like having all the things, maybe they would be very minimally needed. But because of our modern lifestyle, I don't think most people are having the bone broths and all the beef liver and like all these nutrients. That's just not the case. For example, someone who's like in their 60s, there's supplements that could be life changing for that person. I'll start with I think general supplements that are helpful for almost anyone. Think of fish oil for your brain, for your skin, for your hair. It's just going to be super beneficial unless again you're eating wild caught fish many times a week, especially if you suffer with like brain fog or mental clarity, just in general hydration for the skin. I also love evening primrose oil personally for women. It helps so much with hormones and really has great skin benefits.
That's a supplement?
Yes, you can. It's just called evening primrose oil.
Okay.
And my recommendation is to take like 1,000 milligrams. You could start with like 500, but it's real. People notice like their skin is more hydrated. It's also like helps with supports hormonal balance. I love a probiotic. I know this is kind of controversial. I notice a huge difference. So someone else takes it and they don't notice a huge difference, then stop taking it. But I'm not sponsored by them. I literally bought it myself so many years. But the Garden of Life 50 billion women's ones, the ones that are shelf stable, I noticed a difference right away. Magnesium glycinate, I think, is very, very helpful. For me, I notice a big difference if I take a magnesium glycinate, just even 100 milligrams. I like the pure encapsulations one before bed. I sleep through the night. I even know that if I had a later night and I come home a little stimulated, if I take two, so like 200 milligrams, I know that I will have a great sleep. And like I've tested this. If you're someone who has a very hectic job or you're very stimulated throughout the day and you just need a little bit of extra relaxation, I love a magnesium glycinate. And then I personally recently, I've been loving creatine.
I just started creatine in the last 6 months myself, as I've upped my weight training too, because I know that weight training really helps propel it even further and really makes it more beneficial.
Yeah,
And
100%,
it's not
and
just about muscle, it's about brain health too.
yeah, and sleep and recovery, and then I think finally BCAAs for me have also been life-changing. I love Perfect Amino. I just think it's just not again, extra branched chain amino acids just help your muscles repair. My husband starts
BCAA.
Yes, BCAAs.
Okay.
So they just help your muscles repair, essentially it's like giving it the foundations, the building blocks of protein is the best way to think about it. So
Mm.
you're someone who's active, it really helps with recovery. Oh, and a multivitamin, I completely forgot to say, but a great multivitamin. I've taken the one multivitamin from Pure Encapsulation. I've also taken the multivitamin from Body Health. They're great. You take 4 and they're pretty big capsules. They're loaded with great things. So they're a little bit of a harder pill to swallow literally, but they're really wonderful.
And what about sleep? Because I think sleep is so underrated. And I know you said you take magnesium and it helps with your sleep.
Mm.
It's funny. I did a little Instagram poll asking my followers how many hours of sleep they get per night. And so the options were 6 or less, 7 to 8, and 9 or more. And I was shocked that about 80% responded 6 or less. And for me personally, I usually get about 7 to 8, but
Mhm.
8 is my optimal. 9, I'm golden. But
Yeah,
if I'm getting 6 hours of sleep, I'm just a wreck. Like I cannot function. And it really amazed me how many people are going about their day probably really chronically sleep deprived.
yeah.
How does that affect our bodies? Because I know that sleep is also really tied to our gut health. And if you're not sleeping well, you probably aren't giving your microbiome time to heal and to repair itself. And also, when you have gut issues, you're probably not sleeping well. So it's this vicious cycle. So, talk to us about the importance of sleep and why we really need to prioritize that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, sleep is foundational. If you have the ability to get more sleep, it'll be the biggest return on your investment. If you're just scrolling in bed, please just do an
I know
experiment
the
for 1
scrolling in
month.
bed is the worst. It's just a time eater.
You're gonna have such a completely different day if you read instead. It's just like it's so soothing. First of all, it affects your food cravings significantly the next day. So if you have a lack
Mm.
of sleep, your body will start really craving
Oh,
fats and
wow.
sugars because fats are for the brain. Your brain feels lack of clear cognition. You're gonna notice that you just want fatty foods and sugar. Why? Because your brain knows that sugars are gonna give you that energy spike. So when you don't sleep well, if you observe yourself, you'll notice you are not gonna crave the same kind of healthy foods. The second layer to that is while our body is sleeping, especially in deep sleep, it's flushing out everything. It's like literally cleaning our brain. That's a very simplified way to put it. But essentially, there's a kind of a clearing process that goes on, also just to help memory storage and processing. So what happens when you don't sleep? There's this lack of processing, which makes us feel more emotionally vulnerable. So we feel maybe a little more on edge. So it can create this kind of negative feedback loop that on top of that makes it harder to eat healthy because our cravings are going to be so strong. You generally will have less energy. I take electrolytes if I don't sleep well, and a ton of water to try to like rehydrate, remineralize. Getting sunlight, trying to help your circadian rhythm get back on track. I look at like a larger scale, and if you are in a position to get more sleep, it's the best supplement that you could have right there in
And
front of
it's
you. I
free.
think it is free, yeah. Also, sleep before 11 p.m. is much more restorative for our brain. So
Mm.
not all sleep is the same. So sleeping in later is actually not as beneficial as if you went to bed earlier. So trying to have a time for yourself where you get in bed, or at least this time I start my wind down. So I think
Mhm.
being strict with yourself
But you raised a
on
really important concept that I don't think a lot of people realize. All 8 hours of sleep or 7 hours of sleep are not created equal. So sleeping 10 to 6 is very different than sleeping midnight to 8. So you wanna try to go to sleep before 11. That's key.
yeah, like don't make your sleep this hardcore routine. Like tell yourself this time I'm going to start winding down.
But it goes back to what we were saying, you're planning. Everything is intentional. And I think that's the bigger picture I hope that people take away from listening to this is that it's not just doing one thing, eating well or exercising, or it's creating this lifestyle and creating the good habits because the good habits become a domino effect. You sleep well, then you're high functioning, then you get a good workout, you're eating well, you feel good, and it's all goes hand in hand. So everything is tied together.
A lot of people have the assumption that like planning is restrictive when I found planning gives you more freedom. When you have things planned out, you're able to be more present because you know, oh, I already know I'm going to work out today. I have it scheduled at 5 o'clock. I found planning for me lets me feel more in flow throughout the week instead of making how can I control the outcome? Like I'm just like pointing my arrow at the outcome.
So the last thing that I want to talk about is the mindset piece and how if someone is just starting out and they're listening to this and maybe they feel overwhelmed by all the new things and all the new habits that they need to implement. What is the mindset that they can get into and how can they help themselves work on the mental part of this to start on this trajectory of living a healthy lifestyle?
This is a really good question. My approach to this is to try to find a version of yourself that you feel connected to, even if it's a month from now. Studies have shown that the more you feel connected to your future self, the better decisions you'll make. Think about this. When someone's 18, they're not thinking about themselves maybe at 30, so they're not making the health decisions, financial decisions that would be beneficial. But usually as people get older, you feel connected to yourself. And so you start making better decisions. And I think it's the same for mindset. Try to think about, where do I want to be just in a month? What do you want to accomplish? How do you want to feel in 1 month? Where do you want to be in 1 month?
Little baby steps and little triumphs.
Yeah, and the people who focus on just doing little positive things in their life, maybe eating well every day, working out consistently, taking a chance to put themselves out there, maybe doing something new, and you
Yeah.
feel pretty empowered and just anchored into that vision.
Yeah. And the takeaway here is to just set little baby goals. And I always try to tell myself this actually with everything in life is just do better today than you did yesterday. If you can just be like 3% better today, fine in any aspect of life. But you'll see by the end of the week that you've incrementally improved. And by the end of the month, it will be even more. So that is just so much amazing information. I think there's a lot there for people to dissect. And I think it'll really help women to at least have somewhere to start if they want to start this journey of feeling really good about themselves holistically. So I like to end with 3 questions. The first one is, what habit do you think everyone should try for 30 days?
At least 15 minutes of movement. And I think it's like similar to what you said of baby steps, because we also want to build our self-esteem. When we set too big of goals and don't accomplish it, you don't feel good about yourself. Like yoga, Pilates, go for a walk, dancing for 15 minutes. You see just how much more in tune with yourself you feel, how much better life is through movement. I think that that will be such positive data to keep going.
What is one belief you let go of that completely changed your life?
I think that the belief that I have to know how something will happen. I think like my mind's very logical,
Mm.
and I used to, whenever I set a goal or desire, I would only use my previous experience to try to understand how it would happen. And I realized I believe God can make anything happen. It just helps you take the pressure off yourself and kind of move forward more confidently.
And what is one thing you want to do that you haven't done yet?
Um,
I like to have something in there that is for the guests themselves to have them reflect on what they want for themselves, like setting a little goal or kind of tapping into what you want to try.
I think it would be create some kind of product, like wellness product that I'm really passionate about. Of course, it'd have to be super intentional, super needed. That's something I haven't done, like a physical, tangible product that's very wellness related. I'd
I
love
can
to
totally
do.
see that, by the way. I feel like you're so young and you've already accomplished so much. So that's like the next natural thing. Okay, well, we have it out there, so now hopefully it'll happen. Polina, tell us where people can find you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. You can just look up Polina Beregova. I should be on there on Instagram. That's primarily where all my links are. You can check out my link in my bio. I run a women's wellness group program every so often called Revive. And I also do a lot of one-to-one coaching as well. So you can send me a message if that's something that you're interested in.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This was so informative.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm so excited to be on this podcast. And I just really love connecting with people who are like-minded and who have an appreciation for these kinds of things. It's like,
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
thank you.